Hello everyone, welcome to Pat in the Hat. I'm Pat, and today I'm going to talk about writing a text game with Python. So this text game that I'm going to show you is one of the first projects that I worked on to learn how to code. And I find text games are a really great tool to practice your basic skills. So this was a game that I wrote actually for my brother's birthday, and that gave me the motivation to I had a deadline, so I was able to finish it, and these types of projects I think are the really good way to learn and grow as a coder. So I'm going to show you the setup for this game. I'm going to break this into maybe 3 or 4 parts, and let's get into it. So here I'm going to be using Genie as my text editor. I'm going to go ahead and save this as Journey the Unknown. Okay. So that's the name of this game, Journey the Unknown. And the premise of the game, I wanted to make a game that was like Oregon Trail. So you would have a distance that you needed to travel, you would have an inventory of items that you would need to use, and there would be different events along the way that would either break down your vehicle or cause you trouble. So I decided to put it in a sci-fi theme. So this is a game where you are an astronaut who has crash landed on a planet, and you need to make it to basically a beacon to signal for help. And I'll fill you in more on the premise of the game as we go along. So to get started here, I'm just going to say this is a text game by Patrick Brennan. Okay, so how I want to start, I just want the setup. So I want the person who's playing the game, this is where they're going to get the story. This is where they're going to set up the rest of the game. So this is where they're going to get their inventory and their items that they can use throughout the game. So this initial step, I'm just going to start declaring some variables. So these are things that I know I want to include in my game. So let's go ahead and do this. So cargo. This is going to be the amount of items that the vehicle can hold. So I'm going to have my astronaut, he's going to have a space rover, and that's going to be his vehicle that he'll use to travel to this beacon. So he's going to have a few health type stats. So one is just his physical health. So health, I'm just going to set everything equal to 100 to make it easy. So health is going to be 100. His oxygen level, you set that at 100. His thirst level, 100. His hunger is going to equal 100. Miles to target, I'm going to set this to 1,500 miles, and then the miles traveled, I'm going to set that equal to 0. Okay. What else do we need? One thing that I wanted to include, so you're going to have options basically during your turn. You can travel, you could use an item, you could search for food, maybe something like that. And for traveling, I wanted it to be somewhat random distance. So I'm going to set range low. I'm going to set that equal to 20. So this is the minimum amount of miles that you could travel in a day. And range high, I'm going to say is equal to 35. I also wanted to include the one thing that can happen on your journey is you can damage your tires or blow a tire. So I want to include that variable as well. So I'll just say blown tires. And right now that's 0. And blown tires will slow down your rover, and you'll need to repair and all of that stuff. So these are the initial variables that I'll need for this game. And that's the great thing about a text game, is it really does work on your fundamentals. So, you know, doing an inventory, you're going to be using a dictionary. There's going to be a lot of variables. I'm going to be using some functions, so just to keep my code a little organized. That'll come in later videos though. So one dictionary that I need to create is the inventory dictionary. So I'm going to go ahead and just get that out of the way now. Oops. I'm going to have it equal to, okay, I'm going to say bottles of water and set that to 0. What else do I need? I need crates of food. Set that equal to 0. I'm going to do sets of spare tires. Oxygen canisters. Okay, and then finally medical packs, so you can heal injuries basically. Okay, cool. So I don't need that comma there. Okay, let's get into it. So this is going to be the intro to the game. I didn't put this into a function because it's going to run at the beginning of every game, and I didn't feel the need. You can if you want though. So to start off, let's go ahead and print welcome to Journey the Unknown. Okay. So I want to get the person's name so they can basically name their character. So we're going to be using a lot of user input in this early stage. So the user is going to have to pick their name. I'm going to have them pick a profession, and I'm going to have them choose what they want in their inventory. So all of these require user input. So for user input, I like to do make a loop like this that while true. So only if they enter in the correct input that I'm looking for, then they can continue on. Otherwise, I don't want them to be able to enter something wrong and then the game continues and it breaks something later. So this allows me just to control that everything the user puts in is going to be right, and then we can continue on with the game. So while true, I'm going to have the username is going to be equal to input, and then I'm going to have the prompt be, please enter your first name and press enter. Okay. So one thing I'm going to say, if username is equal to blank, so let's say they didn't enter anything, they just pressed enter, then I will say, sorry, you did not input anything. And then I'm going to have this continue will just, it'll go back up to the top, the while true, and we'll start again. And then anything else I'm okay with. So else I'll have break. So only if it's empty will I make them redo it. If they enter in anything else that's remotely right, I'll break out of this loop and they can continue on. So now I'm going to give them some background information about the game and the premise of the game. So I didn't want to type this all out in front of you guys, so I went ahead and put it here. So I'm actually just going to copy this and bring it over here. So you can read it for yourself. So you've just crash landed on an unknown planet. Your crew is dead. Right before crashing, your crew picked up a radio signal 1,500 miles north of the crash site. This unknown signal is your only chance of survival. Luckily, the rover seems to have survived the crash. You must load up the rover with supplies and make the journey to this location of the unknown signal. It may be your only way off the planet. So, and I used the username. So now, let me go ahead and save this and bring up a terminal here. So here's our game running right now. So I'm going to enter in my first name, and here it goes, and you can see that it printed out my name here. So it gives a little bit of a personal touch that whenever we have these paragraphs of text, you're addressing them by name. Okay, so we have the person's name. One thing I also would like to do is I wanted to have a way to pause the game so they have a chance to read the text. So if I have text, I don't want it to just all print out at once. So I want to basically have an input like press enter to continue. So I'm going to go ahead and create a function that does that. I'm just going to do def pause, and then I'm just going to have pause equal input, and then it'll say press enter to continue. Okay. So now I can just call this function whenever I want. So after this, I'm going to go ahead and call this function. And what that is going to do is it's going to stop here, and then it'll say here, press enter to continue. I'll have to click the enter button to continue on with the game. I do actually want to add a couple new line characters to that, just to space it out a little nicer. Okay. So next, after this pause, I want to get the person's profession. So I have that text over here as well, so let me grab that. So I gave them 3 different options of professions that they could choose. So they could choose to be a mechanic, a botanist, or a navigator. The mechanic can repair the rover faster. The mechanic can. The botanist loses oxygen slower, and the navigator is able to travel more miles per day. So I have the user enter B for botanist, M for mechanic, or N for navigator here. So once again, I want the user to enter in only what I want them to enter. So if they enter in Q, for example, I want them to redo it and input either M, B, or N. So to do that, I'm going to do another while true. Then I'm going to have profession is equal to input. And I'm going to say if prop not in, and I'm just going to have a list of B, M, and then N. So if it's not in this list, then I'm going to have them, I'll print out incorrect choice, choose again. Okay. So I'll print out that, and then I'll just continue. And then if it's not if it is in that list, which means they put it in right, then I'll break out of this. So perfect. Now I wanted to put in like a little congratulations, you're a mechanic or you're a botanist, just so it informs the user that their choice was recorded appropriately. So I'm gonna do if prof equal to b, then I'm just gonna reset this variable to botanist. I'll leave prof equal to m. Then I'm gonna have prof equal mechanic. And then finally, then I'm going to have prof equal navigator. Okay. Cool. So now I can do my print statement. So I'll print out congratulations. Cool. And then prof. Awesome. So this should print out now, congratulations, you're a mechanic, navigator, or botanist. So let's test this out and see how we're doing so far. Ooh. So I just forgot a colon here. Try that again. Okay. I'm going to enter in Pat. So they read the text, press enter to continue. Okay. So let me enter B, see if it prints out what we want it to. Yes, okay, it does. Let me actually put a period after that as well. So congratulations, you're a botanist. I'm going to try it one more time here, just to see if we enter in something else. So I'll enter in Pat, let's say I enter in a T by accident. What would happen? Okay, it says incorrect choice, choose again. Now I'll enter in the B. Okay, so that works. So they have to enter in a B, an M, or an N. Okay, so we have that down. Now I'm going to put another pause here. So again, the reason I put that pause, if I didn't put this here, this would print out, and then immediately after this would print out. So they would have two prompts to read, and that can get a little confusing. So I want them to read, enter to continue. I want them to read this, enter to continue. It kind of just helps them along the game. So, okay. So the next I have another block of text here. So let me grab that over here. So this is where they're going to load up their inventory. So it says here, now it's time to pack up the rover and embark on the journey. Before leaving, you scour the crash site for possible supplies. The rover can hold 10 items. The items you decide to bring will determine whether you live or die. Looking around the crash site, you find oxygen canisters, spare tires, medical packs, bottles of water, and crates of food. And that is the inventory that we created earlier. And this cargo variable, that is the space that the rover can hold. So we're going to be using that inventory dictionary, and we're going to be using the cargo in this upcoming part. So again, this is going to require user input. So I'm going to do a while true. And then I want to cycle through. We have that inventory already set here, so I can just use those names that are already in there. So I'm going to do a for loop. So for key in inventory, and then I'm going to have I want to print out the cargo space. So the user knows how much space they have left at any given time. So I'm going to say cargo space, and I'm just going to do a plus string cargo. Okay. And I needed to do that string there because cargo is a integer right now. So if I try to add an integer to a string, it will give me an error here. So I'm just going to go ahead and turn that integer into a string, and everything should work fine now. So I'm printing out the cargo space, and then now I want to get the input of how many of that item do they want to bring. So I'm going to call this number items. Set that equal to, I'm going to make it so they can only enter in an integer. So if they put in something else, it'll spit out an error at them. So int, and then I'll put that input, and their prompt will be how many of our variable key will be that do you want to bring. Okay. And then key. And one more. Okay. So they're going to put that in, and then I want to set the inventory key is equal to number items. Oops. Oh. There we go. And then based on how number they pick, the number that they pick, our cargo also needs to reflect that. So the cargo is now equal to cargo minus the number of items. So that's the main function that we're gonna be using here. I do want to put some exceptions, so I don't want them to be able to pick more than the cargo limit. So as it is now, they could pick, I want to bring 10 spare tires, or I want to bring 20 medical packs, and the code would allow it as it is now. And I don't want that. So I'm going to put in some if statements here. So I'm going to say if cargo is greater than 0, less than 0, then I'm going to have them redo this. So I'll say print. I'm going to print that is too many items. Choose again. Okay. And then one thing that I have to do here, so if it is, so if cargo, let's say, is -2, and this runs, and it goes back up to the top, cargo will still be -2, and it'll actually continue to decrease as they choose more. So I need to reset cargo here. So I need to set it back to 10, so they have a fresh start. And then I'll put continue. Okay. And otherwise, so if cargo is greater than or equal to 0, then I'm just going to break out of this. So I'm going to have them, they can continue on with the game. And that's really the setup that's all we need here to set up the game. So what's going to come next, I'm going to use a main function. I'm going to just call it def main. And this will be the main, you can think of it as a controller. So this is where the user will have a menu of actions to do, and based on what they choose, like I want to use this item, and then that will send them to another function. So this main function, this is going to be the controller that, based on what the user picks, what action they want to do, that'll send them to different functions. So after this, all of my code is going to be in functions. This is just the intro to get them set up, and then we can actually start playing the game. So let me just erase this, and we're going to test it and make sure I did everything okay. So let's go back here. So I'm entering path, so that seems to work. I'll choose B for botanist. Okay. Press enter to continue. Do that. So this is where we have our cargo space. It says 10. And so if I want to bring, let's say, 2 bottles of water, put in the 2, press enter. Ooh, okay. Oh, just a misspelling here. Okay. Okay, let's try that one more time. So path, enter, B for botanist. Okay. If we put in 2. Okay, good. So now it's reflecting that after I chose 2 here, we only have 8 slots left. So I'll just go down the line here too. But let me test out if our, let's say someone actually put a 7 here. So now we're at -3. And I don't want to allow the user to do this. So let's see what happens here. Okay. So this is where it says that there's too many items, choose again, and it resets it to 10. So let me just do 2 for each of the 5 things here. And we're finished. It's good. Okay. Spacing could be a little better. I can work in that. Now. But otherwise, everything's working okay. So I'll have part 2. Part 2 will probably set up the main, that main function, and further down the line I'll create some events of what can happen as you travel along, and those will be separate functions. So if you have any questions, leave them in the comments. Otherwise, thanks for tuning in.